Hi, I'm Brent Strand with the Canadian Avalanche Association's Industry Training Program. In this video, we'll demonstrate the microbox technique and describing when to use it. This strategy was first introduced by Manuel Genswein and Stephan Harvey in 2004. The microbox or microcircle technique is used when there are multiple subjects buried within very close proximity, between 1 and 3 meters, and when the standard search mode of using signal suppression or marking has failed due to signal overlap. This technique may also be used when there is electromagnetic interference in the search area that cannot be mitigated through normal procedures like moving a VHF radio 50 centimeters away. For example, if there are power lines overhead. For this video, we will demonstrate this technique using a transceiver that has analog capability and one that is digital only. By the end of this video, learners will be able to describe the microbox, microcircle technique using an analog capable or digital only transceiver. Explain when to use microbox, microcircle technique. In this first example, the searcher is using an analog capable device. As they approach a distance reading of 10, they stop and update their mental map and state, "I have 2 signals within 10 meters." The searchers continue, and as they approach a distance reading of 3, they stop and update their mental map stating that, "I have 2 signals within 3 meters." They continue with the fine search, communicating their numbers to their team and asking the team to assemble their shovels. Once the searcher completes the fine search and marks the lowest reading with a pole or obvious boot imprint, they take out and assemble their probe and put their pack back on.
Okay, Emily, I've got a subject here that's approximately 85 down. If you can get your probe and shovel out, that would be great.
They then begin pinpoint probing using the spiral or grid technique. As soon as the searcher gets a probe strike, they leave the probe in and state,
"Okay, Emily, I got a probe strike, positive probe strike here at 85 centimeters. If you can start digging at the probe."
The shovel strike team is instructed to dig on the downhill side of the probe in the standard shovel strike team formation, as long as they're not interfering with the search for the next signal. At this point, the searcher uses the marking function and begins to move away and towards another signal. However, the transceiver pulls them back to the signal that they just marked due to the signal overlap. After returning to the probe strike location of subject 1, the searcher switches their transceiver to mode 2. Mode 2 directs the transceiver purely on signal amplitude versus mode 1, which directs the transceiver to lock onto the leading edge of the signal pulse. Now the searcher backs away from the subject 1 probe strike, ideally the way they initially approached it, and keeps the transceiver in the same orientation and just below their knee height. They back away until 2 beeps are noted, approximately equal in strength. The searcher takes note of the distance from subject 1 probe and the number on the screen. They then walk a box or circle around the subject 1 probe, keeping the same distance away from the probe throughout. The transceiver orientation can stay in front of the searcher while they are walking, and the searcher is looking for the number on the screen to change, indicating that it is now coupled with the subject 2's transceiver. Once the transceiver is locked on to subject 2, the searcher begins a fine search, making sure that the transceiver orientation doesn't change. Then they pinpoint until they get a probe strike on subject 2. The subject is 90 centimeters given that the burial is less than 1 meter. The searcher directs the team to shovel side by side. If additional resources aren't available, the searcher assembles their shovel and begins excavating themselves. In the case of many resources, the searcher would return to where the standard search strip was left and carry out 3 and 10 meter mental map updates as they leave the very close proximity buried subjects and carry on with standard search strips, ignoring signals already located. They remain in mode 2 for the rest of the search or until they're far enough away from the multiple signals to allow to switch back to mode 1. In this next example, the searcher is using a digital-only device. What's different now is that the searcher used the signal suppression or flagging function on their digital-only transceiver rather than the marking function as used with the analog capable device. The searcher once again begins to move away and towards another signal, but the transceiver pulls the searcher back to the signal that they just suppressed due to the signal overlap. Once the searcher realizes they've pulled back towards the probe strike location of subject 1, they back away approximately 1 meter, ideally the way they initially approached the subject, and keep the transceiver just below knee height. Once they're 1 meter away from the original probe strike, it's important they note the number on the screen. The searcher walks around the first probe in a box or circle, keeping 1 meter distance away from subject 1. Because this is a fine search, they keep the transceiver orientation the same and look for the number on the screen to change, indicating that it has coupled with subject 2's transceiver. If there's no noticeable change in the number on the screen, then the searcher steps out another meter away and repeats the box or circle around the subject 1 probe, this time keeping 2 meter distance away from the probe. Once again, they're looking for the number on the screen to change, indicating that it is now coupled with subject 2's transceiver. The process of stepping out an additional meter distance from the original probe strike is repeated until there's an indication that the searcher is closer to subject 2. When that's the case, they complete the fine search and pinpoint using the spiral or grid probing method. This scenario ends with the searcher getting a probe strike 90 centimeters down and recruiting the shovel strike team to line up side by side to excavate. If there are not enough resources, then the searcher begins to shovel by themselves.
Get my shovel out.